Syndicated source material.
Part 12 is taking place in Spider-Man, adjectiveless Spider-Man, number 37. We left our heroes, they're about to get their butts handed to them by the angry New Yorkers. New Yorkers are always angry, but Shriek has decided to amplify that just a little bit. Really the main thing that happens in this issue, I really have very few notes on this one. Venom escapes Carnage. He's able to, as Carnage is aiming the sonic gun at Venom for some more torture, Eddie Brock, Venom is able to escape from the Statue of Liberty before he's killed by Carnage. And that upsets Carnage. We check back in on Cloak. Cloak is still upset about the fact that he lost Dagger, that Dagger is dead, and he's in a state of mourning. Is his headquarters this church?
More or less.
Because that's usually where we see him by himself. He's always going back to a church. I don't know if that was his headquarters or if he's just always going there because he's looking. I know he's got some religious connection in that book, but regardless, Cloak's still mourning and very upset. Shriek's still out there putting the emo whammy on New York. Iron Fist does this weird thing in this book where he lets the silence speak, where he just stands there. It's like 5 or 6 people who are absolutely fueled with rage, and then they decide, oh man, look at him. I don't know what goes through their head, but their faces drop and they're no longer angry. Well, for a few panels anyway. And then the rage just picks right back up, and this old guy with a bottle is trying to take him out. Iron Fist is about to let loose, and Spider-Man actually stops him and says, look, you're about to do something you regret. Picks Iron Fist up and gets him out of the crowd of angry mobsters. The angry mob that's about to take him. Carnage does rejoin the rest of our villains in New York, and he does some crazy stuff with Shriek here. He's upset that Shriek is doing what she's doing. He's got this real abusive relationship with Shriek, vice versa almost. You see a lot of it more on Carnage's side of things. And he basically picks her up and throws her onto the ground. And I thought, man, she's dead. But she's fine. Just a little punishment for the way she was acting. The guy that's not okay is Doppelganger, who rises to the defense of Shriek, and Carnage kills him. He's dead, folks.
And nothing of value was lost.
One less thing to worry about writing. Yeah, Carnage kills him. And of course that upsets Shriek. This whole family thing, I don't remember if it's this issue or a couple issues before where the whole mother thing shows up. You always hear mother or father. There was this real Manson family type of deal going on between Shriek and Carnage, and the other villains acting like they're their kids. That got really old for me. It gets addressed. I don't know if it's in this issue or next one, but anyway. So as Carnage kills Doppelganger, Demogorgon's like, screw this, I'm out. And just before he can leave, our heroes show up. Iron Fist, Deathlock, Firestar, Captain America, Spider-Man. Oh, hey, guess what? We're going to have another fight. Can you believe that?
I can believe it.
All right. However, before the fisticuffs can start, a bright light shines, and our heroes and villains both turn their face, especially Carrion's face there. He's my favorite. I might just pick him as a profile pic at some point on Facebook. But everybody's jaw just drops, and lo and behold, Cloak shows up, our last page. Cloak shows up, and his cloak is outstretched, and out of his cloak walks a dead woman. Tandy is back. Dagger is not dead, folks. The last page of Part 12 is Dagger lives. So that's the quick part of Part 12. Quick story of Part 12. Benjamin?
I don't have that much else to add. Mary Jane finally does something in this issue that's not annoying for the first time in the entire story by standing up to Peter's father and sticking up for the heroes and what they're doing. Peter's dad is going on and on about how the city is a cesspool and is sinking into madness, and Mary Jane just tells him in so many words, you're not helping, shut your hole. Eddie Brock's mullet is back, apparently, because this is adjectiveless Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If you look very closely, Eddie Brock's mullet is back, but only for this issue. The good guys try to fight the angry mob. The idea is they're trying to fight them without really hurting them because they realize that they're not fully in control of their actions, which I already discussed my issues with that. I will say that last page of Cloak and Dagger is freaking awesome. I actually really love it. And if you've been listening, that I was not very much of a fan of any of the art in any of the adjectiveless Spider-Man issues. But I also got a glimpse of the credits in this particular issue, and one of the credits in this issue as an inker for Tom Lyle's pencils is Al Milgrom, who actually co-created Cloak and Dagger, so I'm willing to bet that was a little bit more him on this last page than anything else, because he is actually one of the great comic artists of that period of time in the 70s, and with Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man in particular, where Cloak and Dagger first appeared. But other than that, we're coming up on the last two issues of Maximum Carnage, and where J.M. DeMatteis tries to salvage the rest of the story. Well, DeMatteis in part 13, and then Tom DeFalco in the conclusion tries to salvage this whole thing. So I guess that's where we're at now.
The parts about Pete's father and Mary Jane, they don't touch on it, obviously. It's more about the action in these issues, but that's the emotional crux of this, of what we're seeing here. Fact that our heroes represent. Matter of fact, it was a couple issues back. It was called Hope. Our heroes are representing hope. Richard is a negative Nancy. That's about the best way I could put it. He definitely is. And from what you told me about his background, it's hard not to feel defeated if he's spending all this time in a Russian prison or whatever he was in. It's hard to come out an optimist, I figure. But regardless, that's one of the main themes they'll touch on throughout this series. All this death, all this destruction. What can there be but more death and destruction? Well, there's hope. Just like you said, we're going to get into a little bit of this here in part 13.
I'll set the stage for you real quick. This is where J.M. DeMatteis tries to get some of his credibility back, because the last couple of issues that he wrote were not that great. I think he was buckling under the weight of a lot of other stuff going on in the story. But it was his last chance to establish the themes that some of the better writers of the story tried to instill throughout. Love and forgiveness above all else, hope, courage, strength of character, that sort of thing. There's a lot of that going around in this second to last, the penultimate, if you will, part of the story. It tries to get back to what was supposed to be the heart of this story, which got lost along the way. But I think a good job was done of trying to get as close to what this story was supposed to be as possible.
Yeah. This issue, Dagger's back. Holy crap. We thought she was dead. As a matter of fact, Shriek is just out of her mind about the fact that she killed Dagger. She watched her die. How can she possibly be back? We find out that she basically went into the dark dimension in Cloak's cloak. Even Cloak had no idea she was in there. And she was able to survive because of this connection between her and it's Tyrone, right? Is that his name? Is that Cloak's name? Okay. This connection between the two, she was able to survive. She was hit so hard by Shriek that she was scattered. So was her being, I guess. That's about the best way I can describe it. But anyway, she lives, folks. And Shriek is absolutely pissed off. So we get a one-on-one between Shriek and Dagger. Now here's where revenge could easily come into play. But what we find out is that is not the case. As Dagger's able to pretty much get Shriek into submission, Dagger starts to use her power trying to fix Shriek. Shriek is a broken woman. We all know that. And she starts trying to get into her head. And what we realize is that Tandy, Dagger, forgives Shriek for what she did. And at this one page, you're like, oh man, finally, Shriek killed her. Everybody thought she was dead. And Dagger comes out, and instead of punching her in the face or taking one of her legs off, she says, listen, I forgive you. And so that should be it, right? I'm afraid not. When it just looks like she's about to turn and realize the error of her ways, you realize that Shriek is too much of a broken woman to do that at all. And it takes her shot when Dagger's defenseless and thinking that Shriek is actually coming to her senses. Not the case. So Shriek fights. We get a bit more of a fight here. At the end of that battle, Carnage and Shriek are kind of licking their wounds. Carnage is checking on Shriek to make sure she's still in the mindset. They turn to, we're going to get another fight. So they turn to fight our heroes, and there's only one spider standing alone, and that is Spider-Man.
I love this part.
Everybody else is gone. Captain America's gone. Cloak, Dagger, gone. Iron Fist, which I don't even know if he was still part of this. I think he is, but he's gone. Nobody there, just Spider-Man. So, Demogoblin, Carnage, Shriek, Carrion, it's all-out war. It's time to kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man does his best to hold his own. Shriek starts hitting him with some more psychic powers. It's like he starts to lose a little bit of hope, but then there's mention of how love is something that these villains have no idea about, and that might be the key to help these heroes overcome what these villains are standing for. As Spider-Man's getting nailed by the psychic whammo from Shriek, all of our villains get hit with Firestar, Captain America, Cloak, Dagger, Deathlock, and Iron Fist have returned. They start hitting the villains with this machination called the Alpha Magna Illuminator, or as Spider-Man calls it, a good bomb. I liken it to the good slime from Ghostbusters 2. I know I was going to get a Ghostbusters reference in here at some point.
I've also heard it called the Happy Gun.
A Happy Gun. That's not in the comic, but that definitely fits it, because it hits these guys and just does nothing but puts love into their hearts. How's that? Put a little love in your heart.
I should first say that anytime you've got Spider-Man standing alone against impossible odds, ready to fight and possibly ready to die, go down swinging, I'm a happy guy, because that's what Spider-Man's all about for me. It's never give up in the face of overwhelming, impossible odds. So that part was awesome. I love that part where he's the only one in the street and he's saying, it's just me against all of you, and
bring it,
come at me. So that was great. This was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people with Maximum Carnage, was the freaking Happy Gun. I honestly don't have as big a problem with it as some people do. It's stupid. It's a ridiculous conceit of the story, but honestly, it's not even close to the most ridiculous thing in this story. So I'm okay with it. I get the idea of it. I get what they were trying to go for with it. It's basically because it's based in some real science in that alpha waves are responsible. Basically, alpha waves are present and in a heightened state during sleep and during dreams and during subconsciousness. So basically, it's a device that amplifies that and just makes your brain waves stabilize and makes you calmer, and is supposed to make you, I guess in theory, would make you less aggressive. There's a whole lot of wacky, made-up super science to go along with that, but it's a comic, and there's all kinds of wacky stuff like that in comics, and you either accept it or you don't. So I was cool with it. Like, it's ridiculous, but honestly, and it's what they call a Deus Ex Machina. It's a quick fix to beat the bad guys that gets pulled almost completely out of nowhere. I think there's maybe one thing in a previous issue where Spider-Man stops for a minute and has an epiphany, and it's one panel where he realizes, it's in part 12, he starts thinking about some of the stuff his father was telling him, some of the stuff Aunt May was telling him, some of the stuff he was observing, and our hearts tell us what's right, listen to your heart. And so I guess that's where he got the idea for it, but this probably would have worked a lot better in storytelling if they had built it up more than they did. This came right the hell out of nowhere, and that's probably the only major problem that I have with it, is that where did they have time to build this, and when did they have time?
Yeah, dude. We're talking like 5 or 6 panels. I don't know. They obviously weren't off building this. They didn't show us that. So yeah, you're right. It's like right out of nowhere, and they show up with this freaking weapon. It definitely took a little bit of time to put together.
And it works. Think about it. It works.
Yes, it does. The big old pink beam of love.
You know, the ones for Shriek, at first she's in this intense pain because she doesn't get what's happening. Eventually she succumbs to it. She just lets it happen because she realizes if she stops fighting it doesn't hurt as much. The beam drives the carrion virus out of Malcolm McBride. It reverts him back to human form. The Demogoblin is able to escape the force of the beam, but he's so weakened that he collapses. I don't know if he ever appears in anything again after this. I really couldn't tell you for sure. But it's funny where Spider-Man is exhausted and getting ready to fight him one more time, and Demogoblin just collapses. And meanwhile, it's almost over, except for Carnage. And Carnage is fighting tooth and nail, and he refuses to accept peace, and he refuses to accept love, and he refuses to accept anything like that because he just has no concept of it. He's pure hate, insanity, and violence, and that's all he knows. Him fighting the beam actually ends up overloading it, and the whole thing explodes.
We got one epic issue left, and it'll be the conclusion. Okay, so we got the feedback, we got the explosion. Shriek's out of it. Carnage is laying on the ground, and we find out that Carnage is dead. According to Iron Fist, the explosion didn't just incapacitate him, it killed him. So the final parts of these issues is Spider-Man coming to the realization that, well, our intention wasn't to kill this guy, and now he's dead. But of course, Captain America's consoling him and saying, look, you didn't mean to do it. Carnage was the one going around and purposely killing people. Sitting on a rock in the park, Spider-Man is thinking about, oh crap, I haven't been back to the apartment for probably more. If cell phones were prevalent in Maximum Carnage, it would have made his life so much easier. This poor guy, I've got to check in with Mary Jane. I've got to check in with Mary Jane. I've got to check in with Mary Jane. Spider-Man is about to head home when Venom shows up. Venom has been gone for a little bit, and he wasn't in this final battle at all. He shows up in a bit of a weakened state, and he's mad. He's very upset about the fact that Spider-Man killed Carnage, and Venom did not get the opportunity to do so. Venom is still weak, falls to the ground a little bit, and Spider-Man's helping him up. But in the middle of this lake in this park, a mysterious red figure tends to emerge on this last page. And sure enough, Carnage is not dead. Carnage is somehow in this lake. And that's where we leave part 13, going into our final part, part 14.
The fact that we finally get the Spider-Man that we should have gotten all along from this story, that he's just staring down evil and actually fighting, no doubts, no whining, it's just him against all odds, and despite him being completely taken apart and exhausted, he refuses to give up. And that speaks a lot more to the type of themes of good against evil, selflessness, and hope. That speaks a lot more to that than maybe even the whole previous 12 issues worth of reluctance and Spider-Man being indecisive. This is what I was hoping from this all along. It's a shame it took so long to get there, but it was great. Like I said, this part of the story did a lot towards redeeming the other previous parts that were directionless and weren't really about anything.
I hear you. At the end of this issue, I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Now, clearly, we saw on a panel there was a dead Carnage. Iron Fist, I'm sure, checked his pulse, and Carnage is dead at this. I'm like, what the hell? He's coming up out of a lake. What did I miss? I actually had to go back. I thought I missed a panel or something.
You saw the body, but you didn't see his face.
That's right. You don't see Cletus. You see Carnage, or a body laying there with it's somewhat covered by the symbiote, but the symbiote mask is full on. You just see Carnage's face, not Cletus.
Make sure to check us out tomorrow as Maximum Carnage continues, right here on the Source Material Comics Podcast.